morning, everyone, and welcome to our daily word. Today's Tuesday, March 30th of the year 2021. It's a sunny morning. It's good to see the sun shining this morning. Coming to you from home. As soon as I'm done here, I'm headed for a funeral out of town, and so I'm recording this from home, and we'll leave when I'm done. So glad you could join me for our few minutes together this morning as we think about the scripture and the story that's told during the Holy Week. And so, we started with Palm Sunday and all that that's about. And today there is a story that, well, it's really an interrogation that's told in the Gospel of Mark. Jesus is asked lots of things, and we're going to touch on a couple of those this week. Jesus is asked lots of questions during his time, from his arrival to Jerusalem, of course, until the crucifixion. Because there is this idea, that Palm Sunday captured the imagination of some people and captured the ire and the anger of other people. And so often these questions that Jesus is asked are asked to trap him, to get him to say something he shouldn't say. That would do one of two things. One, either make the authorities mad and give them cause to arrest him, or two, to make his followers mad so that they would turn on him. And then maybe the threat of his very existence would just go away. And so this is one of these questions. It's from the Gospel of Mark. It's chapter 12, verses 13 through 17. And this is a story that we know pretty well, that we like to recite when we have an argument with paying taxes. And so here, this is the scripture, this is the story, this is the question. Then they sent him some Pharisees and some Herodians to trap him in what he said. And they came to him and said to him, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality, but teach the way of God in accordance with truth. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor, Caesar, or not? Should we pay them, or should we not?" But knowing their hypocrisy, Jesus said to them, "Why are you putting me to the test? Bring me a denarius and let me see it." And they brought one. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Jesus said to them, "Give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." And they were utterly amazed at him. So there is this interesting conversation that happens that we hear about in this story. So the Pharisees and Herodians come, and they really kind of begin, to butter Jesus up and say, "Look, Jesus, we get it. We know that you're sincere and you show deference to no one, and that you don't regard people with partiality, and you teach the way of God." They're buttering him up. They're trying to soften him up to hit him with the real question. And then the question comes, so is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay them or should we not? This is an interesting question that they choose to ask Jesus. In those days, there was a flat fee that was assessed for every person. And it was really a loathsome reminder that Judea was subjugated to Rome, and that they had to pay this flat tax, if you will. And so a negative response by Jesus would cause him to get in trouble and be an enemy of Rome. But then, as I said before, a positive response then might undermine his popularity with the people who mostly, all of them who we saw on Palm Sunday, had detested Rome. And so Jesus says to them, "Give me a coin. Show me the money, if you will." And so Jesus takes the coin in the fashion that we might expect him and puts the question back on the Pharisees and the Herodians. So, whose inscription is this? Whose image is this? And they, of course, say immediately, "This is Caesar's." And so Jesus replies with this very simple answer. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and render to God the things that are God's. And, the scripture says that they were utterly amazed at him. They probably walked away and said, how did he turn the tables on us? We thought we had him right where we wanted him. But the question, I think, is for us in this time and in this season of Holy Week, what did Jesus' answer really mean? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for the hearers of this story some 2,000 years later? Now we might, and some scholars have said that Jesus' initial answer probably was, no, the tax isn't lawful because everything, belongs to God and not to Caesar. But then this removes part of the story that we need to hear. And so Jesus could have said, render nothing to Caesar, but he reminds us and reminds them that while we owe what they owe to Caesar, and while we pay the taxes that we pay, it is indeed true that everything belongs to God. What's owed to God, then, for me, is the wider question. So, we pay our taxes. We get our taxes done. We submit them, and sometimes we owe, sometimes we pay, and we complain about it the entire time. But then it's done, and this year the tax deadline has been moved to May 17th because of all the things that are going on. So we complain, but then, our complaining, maybe, depending on how much you owe, doesn't last long. And our complaining maybe doesn't last at all if we get a rather large refund. That's one part of the story. But the bigger question for us is the second question, the second answer, if you will. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but render to God what is God's. That's a wide open question, isn't it? So for you and I, as we live our lives, what is it that we owe to God? Where is it that we find the answer to that question about all of our stuff, all of our possessions, all of our money, all of our time, all of our talent, all of our treasure, all the things that are abilities? What is it that we owe to God? And how is it that in response to that God can use us and our stuff? And when I say stuff, I mean the whole of the person of who we are. How is it that what we have belongs to God? And then how is God calling us to use that, in a broader sense? I think about all the things that we have in our lives. I go back to Sunday and I think a lot about Pete. Pete Molitor, we know Pete Molitor is just a great guy. I love him. He's a great friend, and we talk on the phone often and have conversations about sports and all kinds of things. But Sunday, he stood up there on Sunday to lead us with Therese in our gathering song. And what he gave, all of himself, in helping to sing that was a gift. And it's a talent given to God, given by God to him, that then he gave back to God and in turn gave back to us. I sat over there on the other side in the sanctuary and just listened. And when he was done, I let him sit down and Therese sit down, and I just sat there for a short time to let it soak in. Because that gift given to us, giving to God what is God's, to me resonated and echoed through the sanctuary and through the nave and through the narthex. I'm guessing it resonated through Facebook Live and through the camera. You see, for us, when we live our lives, the big question is, what are we going to do with all that God has given us? how are we going to share the talents we have with God, with the church, and then with those around us? So, we have financial things that we can give. We can give of fish, toilet paper, and the things that we're collecting this month, paper towels. We have our talents that we can share with others. We have the ability, to offer ourselves to another person. I'm going to a funeral today of a person who's known me my entire life. I mentioned it Sunday. And I've known all of her kids, 10 of them, I think there are, something like that. I've known all of them my entire life. And I'm going to go to the funeral. Don't have a role to play. I'm just going to go because I think what I have to offer them, just my love, is important enough for me to drive all the way to Kenton and to be there for that. You see, I think when Jesus says, render to Caesar what are Caesar's and God's the things that are God's, he opened the door for us and challenged us and those who would listen about the gifts we give to each other, the way that we share our lives with each other, the way that our lives then affect the lives of others. I've always said, and I continue to say that, there's a Keith Green song that I really like. If you don't know who Keith Green is, you should look him up. There's a song that I like of his that's called Make My Life a Prayer to You. I want to do what you want me to do. And I think for us, and I've said, I just want my life to reflect God's life in me, and that I want to be able to share that with others. Do I always succeed? No, there are days I often fall short of all of that. So, in this Holy Week, they're trying to trap Jesus again and again and again, and he doesn't fall for it. And I wonder how our response is to what God has given us. We pay our taxes, and we do it, begrudgingly so. But then what about everything else? All that's in me, all that's in you, all that we have, time, talent, treasure, if you will. Do we render that to God? Do we really give ourselves to God? I think that's an interesting question, and one that begs us to examine it in our lives today. Are we giving what we should to God? Are we doing it begrudgingly? Are we doing it lovingly? Are we doing it knowing that our giving changes the lives of others? And if we do, then I think we too answer the question that the Pharisees and the Herodians asked Jesus. And so, hope that we could contemplate that as we live our lives and as we share our lives with each other. So, I pray you'll have a great day. I pray you'll know the presence of Christ in your life. I pray you'll use the gifts God's given you and the gifts that God has given me to share in the lives of others. I pray you'll know peace today. I pray you'll know God's love today that surrounds you. I pray that you'll know my love for all of you. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.